Hi there, and welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Taking the time to be part of this conversation says a lot about who you are as a parent. Whether your child is in high school, well into college, or somewhere in between, this session is for you. We're calling it Staying Connected Parenting Through the Alcohol Conversation because, at the core, that's what this is really about staying connected. It's not about controlling your child's every move. It's about building a relationship that's strong enough to guide them, especially when life gets complicated. Before we jump in, I'd like to get a quick snapshot on what you already know and what you might learn today. This is not a test, there's no right or wrong answers, it's just a short check in to see where we're starting from. You won't be graded, your answers are anonymous, and it only takes a minute or two. So go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen with your phone, and once you've submitted your answers, we'll all get started. All right, thanks for doing that. Let's dive in. If you've ever wondered how to bring up alcohol in a way that doesn't lead to the eye rolls or the shutdowns or arguments, you're in the right place. I want to start by acknowledging something up front. Parenting through adolescence and young adulthood is no small task. There's no perfect script, no one size fits all answer. What you do have is one of the most powerful tools in prevention, your relationship. And that's what we'll be leaning into today. You're not just raising a child, you're shaping the adult they're becoming. And while it might not always feel like it, your words, your actions, your presence, they still matter. Sometimes more than ever. Let's take a moment to talk about why this topic deserves our full attention. Now, national statistics show that most kids have their first drink between the ages of 13 and 15. And when alcohol use begins early, the risks increase: addiction, depression, poor academic performance, dangerous behaviors. It's not just about partying, it's also about brain development, safety, and long term health. But here's the hopeful piece: early, open, and ongoing conversations with a caring adult are linked to delayed alcohol use, reduced frequency, and safer decisions. In other words, when you talk, it makes a difference. When you listen, it opens doors. And these conversations, they don't have to be perfect. They just have to happen. There's a common myth that once kids hit their teen years, parents lose their influence, like suddenly we're background noise. But research and experience tell a different story. Teens and young adults still look to their parents for guidance. They still watch what you do. They still care what you think, even if their body language doesn't show it. And I'll say this: your influence doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from showing up consistently. It comes from being available, being real, and being willing to have tough conversations with love and respect. It's less about lectures and more about connection. So, what if, instead of thinking, how do I get them to listen, we start asking, how can I make them feel heard? What if the goal isn't about preventing a behavior, but about protecting their dreams, their values, and their future? That's what we're really doing here. That's the heart of prevention. It's not fear-based. It's relationship-based. Today, we'll walk through what's really going on with teens and young adults when it comes to alcohol. We'll talk about brain science, social pressures, the influence of media, and why positive community norms can shift the whole conversation. Most importantly, we'll explore how you can talk to your child in ways that build trust, not walls. We'll offer real-life examples, practical strategies, and encouragement for wherever you are on this parenting journey. So if you've ever wondered, am I doing this right? Know this: the fact that you're here is a powerful start. You are not alone, and you are not powerless, and you're more important than ever. So let's start by looking at what's happening in the teenage and young adult brain and why that matters for how we talk about alcohol. Before we can have meaningful conversations about alcohol with our kids, we need to understand what's happening inside their heads, literally. This section might be the most important one in the entire session because once you understand the brain development process, everything starts to make more sense. The impulsive choices, the emotional ups and downs, the need for independence and guidance. So let's break down the science, not in a clinical or overwhelming way, but in a way that helps us parent with more empathy, strategy, and hope. The teen and young adult brain is kind of like a house under renovation, except the front porch is fully built, the game room is ready to go, and the entertainment center, it's all set up. But the decision-making in the planning center, that room's still getting drywalled. The part of the brain responsible for planning, controlling impulses, and making reasoned decisions, that's the prefrontal cortex. And it's one of the last areas to fully mature, and usually somewhere between the ages of 22 and 25. So while teens look grown up, and they often want the freedom that comes with adulthood, their brains are still developing the tools needed for good judgment, especially under stress or pressure. The brain develops from the back to the front. That means areas that process reward and emotion and novelty, those fire up early in adolescence. But the areas that help slow things down, assess risk, or think about consequences, that comes later. Think about it like this. Their brains are wired to go fast, take risks, and feel deeply. But the brakes aren't fully installed yet. This mismatch is part of why we see teens engage in behaviors that feel impulsive, irrational, or even risky to us as adults. Now, let's layer in alcohol. Alcohol is what we call a central nervous system depressant. It slows everything down: reaction time, judgment, coordination, memory. In the short term, that can mean your teen or college student forgets what they studied, misjudges a situation, or makes a decision that puts them at risk. Whether that's getting in a car, saying yes to something they're not comfortable with, or not being able to help a friend in trouble. But over time, alcohol interferes with how the brain wires itself. It can disrupt key processes like memory formation, emotional regulation, and learning. The adolescent brain is extremely plastic, which means it's open to change, influence, and experience. That's great for learning. But it also means alcohol can leave deeper imprints during this stage of life. Ages 13 to 25 are what some experts call a critical window. It's when teens are forming their identity, establishing habits, building relationships and patterns, and wiring how they handle stress and pressure. And here's the thing. Alcohol and other substances can actually hijack the brain's reward system, especially when it's still forming. What that means is if alcohol becomes the main way a young person relaxes, copes, or socializes, the brain starts to expect it. That can lead to more frequent use, higher tolerance, and even dependence later on. So let's zoom in for a second on what it's like to be a teenager or young adult faced with the decision about alcohol. Maybe they're at a friend's house. The music's loud. Everyone's laughing. Someone hands them a drink. In that moment, they're not doing a risk-benefit analysis. They're not thinking about brain development. They're thinking, what will people think if I say no? Their emotional brain is running the show. That's why we need to help them think before those moments happen, so they can make a decision ahead of time when their prefrontal cortex has a better chance of being involved. Rehearsing conversations, talking through peer pressure scenarios, helping them visualize what they'd say or do. That's how we parent before the party. Now, a quick side note. Some parents say, well, I drank when I was a teen and I turned out okay. And yes, many of us had experiences like that. But what we know now is different than what we knew then. Neuroscience, mental health data, and longitudinal studies all tell us the earlier someone starts drinking, the higher their risk for negative outcomes, especially if it becomes a pattern. Think of it like riding in a car without a seatbelt in the 1980s. Some people were lucky, but once we learned better, we started buckling up. Not because we were scared, but because we were informed. So what do you do with all this? How does knowing about brain development help you talk with your child? First, it gives you a reason to approach conversations with more patience. Second, it helps you shift from reacting to coaching. Instead of saying, what were you thinking? Try asking, what were you feeling in that moment? Or what was going through your head when that happened? When we ask curious, non-judgmental questions, we open the door for real learning, not just for them, but for us too. Here's something to reflect on. Either now or after the session, what were you like at age 15 or 19? What helped you make good choices? And what got in the way? Who were the adults that really got you? And what did they do that made a difference? Sometimes the best way to connect with our kids is to remember what it felt like to be one. To wrap this section up, here are a few key takeaways. The prefrontal cortex, our decision making center, doesn't fully mature until the mid 20s. Alcohol affects brain development more deeply during this stage. The teen brain is wired for reward, not risk calculation. Your job isn't to control their every decision, it's to equip them before the pressure hits. When we understand the brain, we become better guides. We coach instead of criticize. We prepare instead of panic. And most importantly, we stay connected. Now, up next, we'll explore what your child is hearing, seeing, and believing about alcohol and how those perceptions shape their choices. Let's be honest, growing up today is a whole lot different world from when we were teenagers. Social dynamics have changed. Access to information has exploded, and expectations, both spoken and unspoken, are everywhere. So this section is all about helping you see the world through your child's eyes. The pressures they feel, the perceptions they carry, and the powerful role that truth and connection can play in supporting healthier choices. We tend to jump to conclusions when we hear that a teen or college student has been drinking. But let's pause and unpack why they might drink in the first place. Some of the most common reasons include wanting to fit in, curiosity, stress or anxiety, belief that everyone is doing it, wanting to feel grown up or independent. Now, here's something important. These are human reasons. They don't make your child reckless or bad. They reflect needs for connection, exploration, or relief. And when we understand why, we're able to respond with more empathy and effectiveness. Sometimes alcohol is used as a shortcut to confidence, a shortcut to belonging, a shortcut to relaxing or letting go. Now, for a teen who feels awkward or excluded, that red Solo cup can seem like a ticket into the party, socially and emotionally. But of course, what starts as a shortcut often becomes a detour. And that's why it's so powerful to name the underlying need instead of just the behavior. Here's where we get into perceptions. One of the strongest drivers of teen behavior is what they think their peers are doing. Like, everyone at my school drinks. All college students party. If I don't drink, I won't be included. But the truth, most teens actually aren't drinking. And many college students either don't drink at all or drink far less than people assume. This disconnect between perception and reality can lead to unnecessary risk-taking. Because if they believe everyone's doing it, they're more likely to go along and do it themselves. This is where the concept of positive community norms comes in, because it is a game changer. Positive community norms is a prevention approach that focuses on amplifying what's already going right. Because the truth is, most kids are making healthy choices. Instead of fear-based messaging, don't do this or something bad will happen, we say, here's what most of your peers are actually doing, and that's worth celebrating. When we reinforce those healthy norms, we strengthen them. It's about shifting the narrative from everyone drinks to you're not alone in choosing to stay healthy. Let me give you an example. In a recent student survey, nearly 70% of high school students believed their peers were drinking at parties. but only 30% of students actually reported drinking in the past month. And locally, that gap is even bigger. In Greene County, 93% of high school students said they hadn't had a drink in the past 30 days. And across Missouri, only 10% of high school students reported drinking in the past month. Even more, most Missouri teens actually disapprove of regular drinking. In fact, 84% believe it would be wrong or very wrong for their friends to drink daily. That is a huge perception gap. And it matters because perception shapes behavior. When teens realize, oh, I'm not the only one saying no, that changes everything. They feel less pressure, more confident, and more empowered. As a parent, we have a powerful role in how these perceptions are shaped and corrected. Instead of saying don't drink, which might sound like just another lecture, we can say, most teens your age actually don't drink. You're not alone in choosing to wait. It's a small shift, but it's a big message. It tells them that they're part of something positive. They have options, and they don't need to drink to belong. This approach also creates space for honest conversations about what's real and what's just noise. Let's zoom in on what pressure actually looks like in your child's world. A high schooler at prom after party trying to decide whether to stay. A college student being handed a drink at their first tailgate or frat party. These aren't abstract risks. They're social moments loaded with emotion, identity, and the desire to fit in. So we need to ask, have we helped our kids prepare for those moments? Do they know what to say? Do they know we'll have their back? Here are a few strategies that help teens and college students navigate these tricky moments. Rehearse refusal lines they're comfortable using, like, nah, I'm good tonight, or I've got practice tomorrow. Let them know it's okay to blame you. My parents would be furious if I drank. Help them build friend groups that support their values and reinforce their identity and goals. You're someone who makes strong choices. That's who you are. Here's something for you to reflect on. When you were growing up, what did you believe everyone was doing? What pressures did you feel? And what helped you resist them? And who helped you see the truth beneath all the hype? Those are the same opportunities you now have with your child. One of the biggest things we can do as parents is to catch our kids doing the right thing and name it. I love how you stayed true to yourself this weekend. I noticed how you made a smart choice, and I'm proud of you. These affirmations aren't just warm fuzzies. They reinforce identity. They tell our kids, this is who you are, and I see you becoming someone strong. And it's not just about internal confidence. It's also about real-world consequences. From 2019 to 2021, in Missouri, there were 55 fatal crashes and 127 serious crashes involving substance-impaired driver under the age of 21. Those crashes resulted in 63 deaths and 180 serious injuries. These aren't just statistics. They represent lives, families, and futures forever altered. It's one more reason why this conversation matters. So let's wrap up this section with just a few key takeaways. Teens often overestimate how many of their peers are drinking. Correcting those misperceptions reduces pressure. Positive community norms reinforce what's going right. You can help your child prepare for pressure with love, strategy, and support. You don't have to prevent every risky moment. You just have to be part of their inner voice when it happens. So now that we've explored the world your child is navigating, from peer pressure to perception, let's look more closely at what they're actually hearing and seeing in the media and culture, and how those messages shape expectations. We'll also talk about how to help them respond to what they're exposed to in healthy and thoughtful ways. If you've ever found yourself thinking, where are they getting these ideas? You are not alone. Today's teens and young adults are surrounded by a nonstop stream of messaging about alcohol, what it is, who uses it, and what it means to be normal. And most of that messaging doesn't come from us. It comes from movies, music, social media trends, influencers, and even memes. Now, this section is all about understanding what your child is absorbing from the world around them and how we as parents can help them filter through it with critical thinking, self-respect, and values that stick. Let's start with media. Think of how often alcohol shows up in what your child watches or listens to. That coming of age movie where the high school party is wild and everyone drinks. A song lyric that glamorizes getting blackout drunk. A viral TikTok challenge that involves drinking games. These moments don't always seem dangerous, but they normalize alcohol. They make it feel like an essential part of growing up, of celebrating, and of being free. And here's the key. Media often shows the celebration, but not the consequences. The hangover is funny, the party is epic, the drunk friend is hilarious, but what is left out? The regret, the lost scholarship, the unsafe situations, the anxiety spiral the next morning. When kids see only the highlight reel, it gives them a distorted view of what drinking actually looks like. They start believing this is just what people do. Now, as parents, one of our jobs is to help fill in the blanks. One of the things we know from psychology is this: what's repeated becomes believable. If your teen sees alcohol use in 30 different songs, 15 movies, 100 TikToks, they start to internalize it, even if it's never talked about at home. Repetition can shape norms, and norms shape behavior. That's why we can't afford to be silent. We have to be a voice that balances out the noise, not with the scare tactics, but with perspective. Now, let's not forget real life. The messages aren't just coming from media, they're also coming from peers, older siblings, cousins, and even overheard adult conversations. Maybe your child has seen older students bragging about partying, watched classmates post pictures with drinks blurred out, heard someone say, if you don't drink, you're boring. All of these moments send messages that can either reinforce their values or make them question them. And while you can't control every message they hear, you can help shape how they interpret those messages. Let's talk specifically about college. The myth is that college is one long party, frat houses, tailgates, bars, and booze. But the reality is more complex. Many students don't drink at all. Some drink occasionally or moderately, and a growing number of students are choosing sober curious or abstinence altogether. In fact, on Missouri campuses, only 21% of students report binge drinking in the past year. That's lower than the national average. And 60% of Missouri college students said they hadn't had a drink in the past 2 weeks, compared to just 39% nationally. So if your student chooses to skip alcohol, they're far from alone. What matters is that your student knows there's no one right way to do college. They don't have to drink to belong. Helping them understand that is a gift you can give, especially if they're starting college soon or already there. Drinking isn't just about the substance, it's about the identity. Teens and young adults are constantly asking themselves, who am I? Where do I fit in? What do people expect of me? And sometimes alcohol feels like a shortcut to fitting in. But what if we help them flip that script? What if drinking wasn't the automatic next step, but a choice to be evaluated like anything else? When your child feels secure in their identity, they're more likely to make choices that align with their values, not just the vibe of the moment. So let's walk through a few real life scenarios. These are kind of moments that can catch our kids off guard. A sleepover where someone pulls out alcohol, prom night when a friend offers them a drink, a college football game where everyone's pre-gaming. These are high pressure, high energy moments, and your child needs more than rules. They need tools. So ask yourself, do they know what they would say? Do they know how to exit the situation? Do they believe they have a choice? The more we help them prepare, the stronger they will feel when the time comes. Here's what you can do to help. Talk about what they're seeing. If you're watching a movie together and there's drinking, pause and ask, what do you think about that? You can also name the glamorization. You might say, notice how they skip the next morning. That's not real life. You can also reinforce values. That might be their norm, but it doesn't have to be yours. And also, you can stay open. Your calm curiosity helps them open up too. The goal isn't to shame culture. It's to equip your child to think critically and choose consciously. And now, a tough but important question. What are we modeling? Our kids notice when we say don't drink, but then joke about needing wine to get through the week. They notice when we talk about responsibility, but drive home from dinner after just 2 drinks. Modeling doesn't mean being perfect. It means being aware. The messages they're seeing start with us. And when we align our words with our actions, we give them something real to hold on to. So take a moment to reflect. What shows, music, social media do your kids consume most? What messages are being reinforced about drinking, adulthood, and fun? What do you hope your child believes is true about themselves? These questions aren't about guilt. They're about awareness. And awareness is the first step to meaningful change. So let's bring it all together. Teens and young adults are constantly absorbing messages about alcohol. Media often glamorizes drinking while skipping the consequences. College culture is more diverse than the party stereotype. Your voice can help balance out the noise with truth, empathy, and consistency. When we see what they're seeing, we can guide them through it, not with fear, but with wisdom. And that leads us to our next section. How to actually start and sustain these conversations in everyday life. You've probably heard the saying, it's not a one-time talk, it's an ongoing conversation. And when it comes to alcohol, that couldn't be more true. The goal here isn't just to give your child rules. It's to build a relationship where they feel safe coming to you, especially when they're confused, scared, or feeling pressured. Because no matter how strong your house rules are, it's your relationship that gives them the courage to make healthy choices, even when you're not there. Let's be honest. It's tempting to lead with control when we're scared. Don't do it. If I ever catch you, you better not embarrass me. But here's the truth. Fear-based conversations might get short term obedience, but they rarely build long term trust. What works better is connection. It's saying, I care about you. I want to understand. Let's talk about this together. Connection builds a kind of influence that sticks long after the curfew ends. The way we talk about alcohol should grow with our kids. So let's walk through some age appropriate starting points. Elementary school, ask something along the lines of, have you ever heard of alcohol? You can say, some adults choose to drink, but it's not safe for kids because your brain and body are still growing. You want to focus on curiosity and honesty. When you get to middle school, you can ask, what do you think kids at your school think about alcohol? Then you could say, in our family, we have values about health and safety. Let's talk about what that means for you. Here you'll want to focus on values and boundaries. When we get to high school, ask something along the lines of, have you ever been in a situation where somebody has offered alcohol? You can say, I'm here to help you think through those moments, not just tell you what to do. You want to focus on identity, pressure, and planning ahead. When it comes to college, maybe try asking, what is it like navigating alcohol in college culture? You can say, I trust you. I want to keep supporting you as you make decisions that reflect your goals. Here you want to focus on autonomy, respect, and support. Now let's talk strategy. When it comes to conversations about alcohol, how we talk matters just as much as what we say. So I want to encourage you to ask open-ended questions like, what do you think? How would you have handled that? It's okay to share your values. In our family, we value health and respect. You want to keep your tone calm, even if you're nervous, even if you're frustrated. And try to listen more than you talk. Sometimes silence is where the trust grows. Resist the urge to lecture or preach. It usually shuts down conversations. You don't want to use shame or scare tactics. Those often backfire. You also don't want to avoid the topic. Avoidance can send a message that you're uncomfortable and uninterested. And you don't want to assume that they know your expectations. Make them clear, but make them clear with love. Some of the best conversations don't happen during big sit-down talks. They happen in the car after practice, while folding laundry, during a movie when something alcohol-related comes up, around the dinner table casually. These are the moments when your child's guard is down and your voice can come through as supportive, not corrective. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create space for many small moments. So let's practice. Here are some common things teens or college students might say and how you could respond. Everyone drinks. It's not that big a deal. You might try saying, it might feel that way, but most students your age actually don't drink, and I'm proud that you're thinking about what's right for you. You don't trust me. I do trust you. That's why we're talking. I want you to feel strong in your choices, not just safe from consequences. You don't get it. Things are different now. You're right. Things have changed. Help me understand what it's like for you now. I'm listening. Nothing bad will happen to me. I hear you. But sometimes the consequences aren't about bad things. They're about missing out on your full potential. Let's talk about that. If there's one theme that runs through all of this, it's your example matters. If you drink, how you talk about it and how you behave while doing it teaches your child more than any speech ever will. If you don't drink, how you explain your choices can be equally powerful. Modeling isn't about being perfect, it's about being intentional. Do you talk openly about boundaries and health? Do you show what moderation or abstinence looks like in practice? Do you admit mistakes when they happen? When your words and actions align, your message sticks. Here's what we know from research: youth who talk regularly with their parents about alcohol are less likely to drink. Those conversations don't have to be long, they just have to be consistent. Feeling heard protects them more than being told. Connection builds confidence, and confidence leads to safer choices. Let's pause for a quick reflection. How did your parents talk to you about alcohol, if at all? What do you remember from those conversations? What do you wish they had done differently? And what's one thing you'd like to do differently with your child? The good news is you get to choose. You get to shape this relationship in a way that's honest, intentional, and deeply impactful. If you've been feeling unsure about how to talk to your child about alcohol, just know this: you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to show up, ask questions, listen, be curious instead of critical. You're not just managing risk, you're building a foundation of trust and resilience that will serve your child for years to come. In our next section, we'll build on this by looking at how parenting through values and identity help your child make strong, future-focused decisions even when you're not around. So far, we've talked about the brain, social pressure, media messages, and how to talk with your child. Now, we're zooming out and we're looking at the big picture. Who is your child becoming, and how do we parent in a way that supports that? Not just the behavior in the moment, but the kind of adult they're growing into. This is about more than alcohol. It's about identity, values, and purpose, and your irreplaceable role in helping your child become the best version of themselves. It's easy, especially in a world full of dangers and distractions, to slip into survival mode as a parent. Just get through high school. Please don't mess up your scholarship. Don't get in trouble this weekend. But what if we reframe the goal? What if instead of managing risk, we focus on raising someone confident, kind, thoughtful, and clear about who they are? That shift from fear to purpose completely changes how we parent. Here's what the research tells us here. Teens who feel close to at least one parent are significantly less likely to misuse substances. They're also less likely to experience depression, engage in risky sexual behavior, or drop out of school. What makes the biggest difference? Feeling seen, supported, and safe at home. In short, your relationship is a protective factor. The bond you build today is one of the most powerful buffers against the pressures they'll face tomorrow. Teen and young adult years are filled with identity questions. Who am I? What kind of person do I want to be? And what do I stand for? Alcohol-related decisions, whether to drink, how much, when, with whom, aren't just health decisions, they're identity decisions. When your child sees themselves as someone who is strong, healthy, and future-focused, they're more likely to make choices that match that self-image. That's where you come in. You're not just setting rules, you're helping them shape who they believe themselves to be. One of the most powerful tools we can give our children is not a set of answers, but a set of questions they can carry with them. Questions like, what choice reflects the future I want? Does this align with who I am becoming? Am I doing this because I want to, or because I feel pressure? These questions build a filter, a decision-making lens that helps them lead themselves when no one is watching. That's what we're aiming for, not just obedience, but ownership of their choices. We don't just want them to get through high school or college. We want them to thrive as adults. That means we parent with the end in mind. We ask, what kind of adult do I hope my child becomes? How can I model and reinforce the values that lead them there? This includes talking about hard things, encouraging resilience, allowing them to make and learn from mistakes. When we lead with values instead of just rules, we build trust and we build character. One of the most powerful things you can do is live your values out loud. That doesn't mean being perfect, it means being real. It's okay to say, I didn't handle that well. Let me try again. Here's something I've learned the hard way. Or, I'm proud of the way you thought through that. When your child sees that you're still growing, still learning, still trying, they learn it's okay for them to do the same. This kind of modeling doesn't just teach them how to behave, it teaches them how to be human. Too often, we parent from what we fear and not from what we see. So here's a challenge. What are the strengths you see in your child? Are they loyal, creative, observant, brave? Do they care deeply about justice or friendship or goals? Call those things out. Say them out loud. I see how responsible you've been. You have such a compassionate heart. When we name their strengths, we help shape their identity, and that identity shapes their choices. Take a moment to reflect on these. What are 3 words that describe the adult you hope your child becomes? What are 2 values you want them to carry into their relationships? What's one way you're already helping them become that person today? Now, these aren't abstract goals. They're daily touch points. Every conversation, every boundary, every moment of connection is shaping that future adult. If you've been wondering whether you're doing enough or doing it right, let this be a reminder. Your child may not always act like it, but they're still looking to you. They're watching how you show up, how you recover from mistakes, and how you lead with love. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. When you stay rooted in your values, in your relationship, you're giving them a compass they'll carry long after they leave home. Let's close this section with a few final reminders. You're not just parenting behavior, you're shaping identity. Your relationship is one of the greatest protective factors. Future-focused conversations help them develop internal motivation, and strengths-based parenting builds confidence and clarity. You are the guide they still look to, whether they say it out loud or not. You are doing important, brave work, and it matters more than you know. In our final section, we'll wrap everything up with encouragement, support, and a list of resources you can turn to as you continue this journey, because you're not in this alone and your influence doesn't end when the conversation ends. If there is just one message I hope you take away from today, it's this. You matter. Your voice matters. Your relationship with your child matters. Through all the eye rolls, the late night texts, the hard conversations, and the moments where it feels like nothing is getting through, you are making an impact. Prevention isn't a single talk. It's a long game, and your presence is the most powerful tool you have. So let's end with a bit of good news. Despite what the media might lead us to believe, most young people are making positive, healthy decisions. Most teens aren't drinking regularly. Many college students are choosing moderation or opting out altogether. More and more youth are saying yes to boundaries, balance, and their own goals. This means your child has peers who are making strong choices, and they can too. Remember, this isn't about one big sit-down talk. It's about a lot of little moments in the car after school, while cooking dinner, on a walk, or during a show. When we normalize open conversation, we normalize trust. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to keep showing up, listening, and being willing to talk about the hard stuff with love. As we close, I want to leave you with some practical tools. These are resources that can support you and help you keep the conversation going. Now, these are just starting points. Reach out, stay curious, and stay connected. Before we close out, I'd love to hear what stuck with you. Just like at the beginning, this is a quick check in, not a quiz or a grade. It helps us understand what messages made an impact today. So go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen. It's just a few short questions and should only take a minute or two. Thank you for being here. And thank you for caring enough to learn, to reflect, and to keep showing up. You don't need to be a perfect parent. You just need to be a present one. And you're already doing that right now. So take a deep breath, give yourself credit, and remember, stay connected, stay curious, and keep showing up. Your child's future is being shaped every day, and your influence is a big part of that story.